Welcome. This is my first video about covering the One Piece manga. I'm hopefully gonna do this every week, except for break weeks, obviously, when a new chapter comes out. Chapter 1142, An Awful Day. Yamato gives the woven hat to Kawamatsu. We see them, just chilling, right? I know a lot of people kind of complain about this cover story. I don't really mind it. I like it, to be honest. It's cool just seeing them chill, right? The chapter starts with Gerd staying back, and she's going to take care of Kaban. Same with Chopper too. The new giant war parties are gonna move up, but Gaban says that Luffy needs to be careful about how he uses his Conqueror's Haki, which, means that that's probably the countermeasure against the regeneration. I've heard some discussion about people not liking this, but I've also heard people not really, thinking it's cool, right? The only thing is, it's only characters with Conqueror's Haki that can beat them and defeat them, and it kind of narrows down the pool of characters. Now that could mean that we get characters who have Conqueror's Haki who have not shown up for a while. Like, for example, Boa. Boa has Conquerors. Even like Don Chinjao, right? They have Conqueror's Haki. Maybe they can fight these God's Knights and we get some fights from them, which would be cool. But it means we most likely won't get the Straw Hats, which does suck. Maybe Luffy can do like what Joy Boy did with the rope and create like a weapon, or just ropes again, I don't know. Something to help the Straws fight them, I don't know. Then we get Loki, and Loki says, I'm the only one left who's faced these knights before, I know I can beat them. He might be talking about 14 years ago, or he might be talking about previously in the arc when Gunko and Shamrock started attacking him. It really just depends. Obviously later we get some of the flashback 14 years ago, and then we get 109 years ago, but I'm gonna talk about that later. But Loki pleads for Harden to take him with him. And Harden says, hell no, I'm not gonna do that. Then we cut over to Gabon, and Gabon says there's another in your group who uses Conqueror's Haki. And Sanji says, is it me? And he starts saying that Zoro and Jinbei were about to get ahead of him, right? Gabon completely ignores him. A lot of agenda here. He says, you there, swordsman, your body seems to be growing accustomed to it. Zoro obviously didn't know. He didn't know during King fights, he didn't know during the Lucci fight. But it's kind of interesting that he just has this, just as Luffy says, oozing off of him. Does that mean that he's been kind of nerfed, or is he just stupid? He is stupid, obviously, but maybe it's both. Gabon kind of lays it on him, and he says, your captain is one of the 4 emperors. You should be meticulous if you intend to have his back. I like this a lot from Gabon. It shows that he's serious about this. This is, like Zoro said in Water 7, we're not little kids playing pirates. We're dead ass right now. Especially now. And Zoro says, my bad. I have heard that some people think that we might get like a little Zoro arc where he's dealing with anxiety, especially because of Sanji, him not being able to finish off Lucci, right? Until Sanji said it. Even just the king fight as well, and him being kind of too serious, I feel. Sanji continues to ask Gabon, what about me? And we have a conversation between Harden and Loki, and Loki's like, Harden, you're pathetic, you'd rather sit back and let these outsiders save our homeland? I'm right here, use me. And then we get a panel of Sanji, and Gabon is saying something to Sanji right here. I think that's very obvious. That is not cope or anything. I don't care about agenda. I love every character. I don't care Sanji. I don't care more for Sanji than Zoro, or Zoro more than Sanji. I like both. And this might set up the Conqueror's Haki. If he gets Conqueror's Haki, I better not see anyone say that was an ass pull or anything like that, because this is clearly set up right here. Maybe it's him saying he can't have it, or he doesn't have it, but I think if he does get it, it's clearly set up right here. So that Odo can do whatever he wants. Harden continues to not trust Loki, rightfully so from what he knows, obviously. He says, you could easily stab Elbaf in the back again. Just like you did on that day, how can you expect me to trust you? Loki then gets a little stunned, but Luffy says, hey, join my crew. And his reasoning for that is that if he does, Harden can't really control him because he'll be under Luffy, and Luffy will be his boss. Luffy says he can beat him up easily if he tries, but Loki says, hell no, I'm not joining you, I don't want to be an underling. Me personally, I don't think he's gonna join. If anything, I think he's probably gonna be a co-captain of the New Giant Warrior Pirates. Because let's look at the New Giant Warrior Pirates. You have the one from 2 generations ago, or I guess a giant generation, obviously. So that would be like 400, 400, 500 years ago, which were Yarul and Yorul, I think are his names. I don't remember. And then you have Dory and Bragi, and now you have Haruden and just Haruden. So is Loki gonna be the other one? Maybe. Levi says he can't wait to see him fight. This to me feels like a hint as to what his fruit is, or his powers. I've seen some people throw around the idea of it being a gum gum fruit, like the actual gum gum fruit, and that would be very interesting. It also would mirror Ors and Thriller Bark having the fruit, and Loki. Obviously, Ors didn't have the fruit, but Moria used Luffy's shadow, obviously, so he got the fruit powers. And both are ancient giants. At least Loki has some ancient giant blood in him, so I think that would work nicely. Goldberg and Stanson, they say, Harden, we gotta go, come on, man. And Harden says to Luffy, I'm sorry, we can't let him go, he's a criminal. But then Gabon speaks up and he says, release Loki. This is major, especially because it's coming from Gabon. He most likely knows his powers, you've probably seen him. As we see later in the chapter, he was at his house when all this stuff happened. He probably saw Loki. He was with Shanks, and Shanks is the one that ends up finding him and putting him in his place, getting him back to Elbaf. Harden lists off all of the crimes that Loki has committed before, like killing the 113 members, almost killing Yarrow, killing his father, all that. And Gabon says he knows that, but he did feel a strange hockey emanating from the castle on that day. The others are shocked because they didn't know he was there. Harden and Luffy stay behind. Meanwhile, the New Giant Warrior Pirates and Zoro and Sanji, they go up. So they're kind of like the vanguard, which is going to be very interesting. We're probably going to get a lot of Zoro, I would say, because of the Conqueror's hockey stuff. Another little fun tidbit that I liked is Harden saying, if you truly consider yourself a warrior of Elbaf, you swear on our gods that what you say is the truth. Who are these gods? Because we know of a god named Elbaf, who's like the warrior god, I'm pretty sure, because I think Dory and Bragi say that during Little Garden. But he says gods, so it would be cool to find out who these gods are. It would add on to the world building. Then we get the flashback, and it's Loki telling Luffy and Haruden and all of them. We have Loki and Yaro walking through the chambers, and they start talking about how the culture is in Elbaf right now, and it being about peace and not war and fighters, and Loki is kind of against this. He wants these kids to learn up growing how to fight. Meanwhile, Yaro, who is his elder, really doesn't want that. He's experienced this, and he doesn't want this at all. He wants his great-great-granddaughter Ilva to experience peace and not have to fight or anything like that. I think what's going to end up happening is there's going to be a middle ground of them realizing that we still need to know how to fight, but we don't need to necessarily raid others, and we can still have good relationships with other countries. The other giants clearly don't like Loki, because one of them says, young master, it's a pleasure to have you back. But Loki starts kicking one of them and kind of stomps on one of them and brings the door down and says, old man, I'm back. And you see Harold getting stabbed by all of the presumably 113 members. Then we cut to Gabon's house. Gabon says to Shanks, it's been quite a while since we've shared a bath. How long's it been? 3, maybe 4 years. And Shanks says, get real, it's been 10 years since the captain died. This might be just because Gabon is old, but I really like the theory of it being tied to the time manipulation that's going on in Elbaf that we don't know of, but we kind of speculate because of what Louis Arnaud said. Gabon also says, if that must have felt like forever ago to you, which kind of furthers that point. I think that would be really cool. And it would mean a lot of changes would happen outside, because it would mean It's slower in here and faster outside. Not faster in, slower out. Personally, I would have enjoyed it if it was reversed. But I'm not gonna complain or anything like that because we don't know everything. We don't know anything, so I'm not gonna say anything. An interesting point as well is that Shanks has both his arms, and he has a mark on one of them. This mark is very similar to what Summers had on his arm when we first see him. This is probably the Abyss mark that Killingham was talking about previously. Maybe Shanks was a spy, maybe it was truly with them, we don't know. But I cannot wait until we get that Shanks flashback. It's probably going to end, like I think the last chapter is gonna be chapter 1, because the Kuma flashback, it ended in the last chapter of the Kuma flashback. We were at Saboti and we see everything that happened there, so I think the last chapter of that is gonna be Shanks stuff. See, that's gonna happen way later, but I'm just speculating. Gabon also calls Shanks the child of destiny, which is a lot of gas. I mean, I like it though, I fuck with it. And we find out that they were at Little Garden meeting Dorian Broggy. Makes a lot of sense. That's part of how Shanks met Dorian Broggy, right? And we see Ripley. Hey, I love me some Ripley. We got the Mountain Eater here, and we got the Mountain. You know what I mean? So we also see Colin. Colin, I think, will be 6 years old because he's 20 right now. I'm pretty sure, and this is 14, so 6 years. We also have them bickering a little bit, and Ripley asking about some old stories from what Gabon used to do, and Shanks says, about Gabion-san? Well, I've got one. Anytime we made it to port, there were who knows how many. And then Gabon pinches him, which is pretty funny. Gabon and Shanks talk about meeting Harold. And Shanks reveals that he was at Marijoa and met Harold. We obviously have known he was at one point at Marijoa, but got turned down and went back. But he still has the Abyss. Did he get that as a baby? Was he there for an extended period of time and then got it? We don't know. It also brings in unique parallel and adds even more onto chapter 1. Chapter 1 just gets better and better and better the longer we are in the series. We then see some of the massacre, and we see the legendary fruits. Someone taking it. Maybe it wasn't Loki. We don't know. And well, maybe that is Loki. Then we pan to 109 years before the present day. And the narrator says that if you ask anyone what the scariest thing on the sea is, the answer would always be the same. The giant warrior pirates. That was how things were in that era. And we see how they got the reputation, and we see a young King Harold who probably kills a lot of people. And he's 45 years, which would mean 15 in human years. And the narrator says he is pure scum. He's no one you want to be around with. But we're, through this flashback, going to see how he became so beloved. I think Harold is going to be a relatively great character. He's going to start off pretty bad, then become good, but still have that like emu influence that's gonna happen maybe when he's at Mary Joie, for example, right? But yeah, that was the chapter. In my opinion, it was a great setup chapter. I would probably give it like probably give it a 9, I'll be honest. I think it was phenomenal. We got a lot of characterization for Loki, Harold, for Zoro and Sanji as well. Luffy saying, Loki, join my crew. Get some nice tidbits from Shanks, Gabon as well. I just love the chapter. And obviously Harold as well. But I just cannot wait until this comes out in the anime. But let me know what you thought of the chapter. Is there anything you really want to see in this flashback? Are there any characters like maybe Dr. Kureya will be 30 years old during this as well? Is there anything you want to see? But with that, guys, have a great day, an awesome day, and see you guys next time.